Have you ever wondered why it's so difficult for you to change? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you why it's so hard for you to change. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to give you tips how you can make long-lasting change in your life. So let's jump right in. So the first thing we want to talk about is what makes it so damn hard for us to change. And the reason that is that every time you repeat a behavior or a thought or a feeling and it becomes a pattern, your brain creates these pathways or networks that become stronger every single time you repeat that thought or feeling or behavior. And it's actually, they're called neural networks. And according to Hebb's law, I just think this is an easy way to remember it. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And what that means is every time you repeat an action, thought, or feeling, you're strengthening that neural network or that pathway in your brain, which is why it makes it so challenging for most of us to change. So the first thing is you have to even be aware of what it is you want to change, and you've got to catch it, right? So if you're like, I don't want to act that way anymore. Let's say you're working on impatience, right? I'm definitely working on that with my 7-year-old. I've got to be aware and catch it every time that I'm impatient with her, right? Or most of the time. Ideally, it's every time. So you have to catch it, and then you've got to create a new neural network in your brain, a new pathway. And so the metaphor I like to use is, let's say that you go hiking and you take the same path every day up the mountain, and you have a dog, let's say, and you're so used to going on this same path because it's so well worn and you've gone on it so many times that when you get to the path, like your dog can even just go ahead of you and knows exactly where to go. And then one day you decide, you know what, I think I'd like a different view from this mountaintop. And so you go up the path and you're like, or up the mountain, and you're like, it would be so easy just to go on this old, well-worn pathway, but I want a different view. So I'm going to take my scythe, I'm going to cut down the underbrush, and I'm going to create this new path through the weeds and the underbrush and the thicket. And it's challenging, and your dog doesn't know where to go. And it's difficult to get around the mountain that first time. And then the next day you go up and your dog and you are just like, the tendency is to go on that old path. Because here's the thing too, under stress, your brain automatically is going to go on that old pathway because it's what's familiar. So I'd love to hear in the comments one thing that you want to change, whether it's a behavior, a thought, or a feeling. And if you're finding value in this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. It definitely helps the content get out to help more people. Okay, so you're going up and you want the new view. And again, it's a little bit challenging because the path is overgrown, but it's not as hard as it was the first time. And then the next time you go up, it's not as hard as it was the first 2 times. And then you go up again, and it definitely takes effort to not go on that old path that's super well worn. But each time you go on this new pathway, AKA you choose a new thought, feeling, or behavior, becomes a little bit easier and a little bit easier until eventually the new pathway that you've created becomes well worn and it's easy and there's a groove. And actually the old pathway, the old behavior, thought, or feeling gets overgrown. Okay, so here's the trick to creating a new behavior, thought, or feeling, AKA creating change and making it last. So we already talked about, you have to become aware of it. You have to decide what the new pathway is going to be, right? You can't just say, I'm going to change this, but I don't know what I'm going to change it to. You got to pick that new pathway as you're going up the mountain. What is it that I want to think, feel, or act? And the trick is you've got to practice it. You've got to make that choice every time you go up the mountain, because it's every time you create the new pathway that you take that different step that the new pathway becomes well-worn. And that is the trick to change.